You know this is actually my great-grandfather Poppy. I'm going to tell you about him. I interviewed my great-grandparents Alden and Janie Buss. They are in their 90s and were made in 1940, 72 years ago. This is their wedding picture. My great-grandfather is called Poppy. He was born on July 19, 1917. World War I was being fought in Europe. Their four grandparents, my great-great-great-grandparents, all came from different parts of Germany in about 1880 to 1885. To get around town when Poppy was a boy, he mostly walked from place to place. His parents only had one car. There were also horse-drawn carriages that went up and down the alleys behind the houses. The iceman sold blocks of ice. There were no refrigerators. He would cut a piece of ice 25 pounds, 50 pounds, or even 75 pounds for you to put in your icebox and keep your food cold. Also in the alley, a waffle maker sold waffles from his cart, and there were fruit vendors too. The rag pickers went through the ash pits to pick out trash that could be reused. There weren't many cars, but there was a lot of horse poop in the alleys. Poppy's mother was a legal secretary. His father was a jewelry salesman who started his own jewelry store in about 1916. There's a picture of him in the jewelry store. His mom and dad. They lived in an urban flat above the jewelry store in South St. Louis. There were no single-family houses like I live in. There were two-family houses or four-family houses with two families on the first floor and two families upstairs. There also weren't apartment buildings. There were rows of stores and people lived above their stores. His father, my great-great-great-grandfather, was very strict about using other people's property. For example, at the baseball games, the bleacher seats were only 50 cents, and general admission was only $1. These prices were less than the cost of a baseball. So, if you were lucky enough to catch a fly ball, you would throw it back. Otherwise, he would consider that pilfering. Pilfering is another word for stealing. Another time, Poppy wanted to keep a small milk bottle that came with his meal at a restaurant. But his father said, no, it belongs to the restaurant. They walked to school every day, rain or shine or snow, 8 inches deep. No school buses, no air conditioning, no snow days. Everybody brought their own lunch to school and made at home. They ate at their desk. When he wasn't in school, he played baseball and softball in the alley. They also played in the sand lot, an empty lot. The boys played soccer and other sports too. Poppy didn't have many chores when he was a kid, but from time to time he had to take the ashes to the ash pit behind his house. Back then, for heat, everyone had a coal-burning furnace. To get heat, you had to shovel coal into the furnace and clean out the burned up coal ashes. Poppy had to take these ashes to the ash pit in the alley. The ash man came every 2 weeks to empty the ash pit. You can also put bulletin cans or other trash in your ash pit. For fun, his family had a cabin on creek or lake. They had a canoe and a rowboat. Poppy learned to swim in the lake when he was my age. They shot off their own fireworks on the 4th of July. Lots of rockets, Roman candles, and great big firecrackers. This is Poppy and his dog. And this is Poppy and his family in a rowboat. As for historical events, there was Lindbergh's solo flight from the U.S. to Paris in 1927. Poppy was 10 years old when that happened. 2 years later, his mom took him on 2 sightseeing flights in open cockpit planes for $10, which was a lot of money at that time. You could take a flight from Parks Airfield, an airport in East St. Louis. Harley Parks, the airport owner's son, took my great-grandfather up twice. These experiences made him interested in flying, and later he became a pilot. I learned a lot about what life was like almost 100 years ago in St. Louis. They had ash pits, waffle cellars, ice boxes, horses, and horse poop in the alleys. Kids play baseball in the alleys, and you could see the St. Louis Browns play just for 50 cents. I think it would have been fun to live in St. Louis back then.